So today I want to introduce you to a point and shoot camera that I love, and I spent all of 2024 collecting pictures to show you guys. And this camera is the Nikon L35AF. It is just a beautiful, beautiful point and shoot camera, and I had an amazing experience shooting it. So I'm here to basically sell it to you and have you put it in your own collection. This camera was originally made in 1983, and it was Nikon's first autofocus camera in their point and shoot line, and it really revolutionized the point and shoot camera industry, and a lot of the point and shoot cameras after this became autofocus. The body is made of plastic, but it's highly durable, and it does have some weight to it, so it's not a light camera. It has weight, especially without the batteries and film. And the design is absolutely beautiful. And I believe that if you love the way your camera looks and you like looking at it, you're going to take that camera with you wherever you go, because you want other people to experience it, plus you want to be able to see your camera when you're shooting, and it will come everywhere with you as long as you love your own camera. Plus it has this nostalgic appeal to it. I just absolutely love it. The lens is sharp, and I am stressing sharp. This lens is absolutely beautiful. It is a 35mm lens, and it stops down to 2.8, so you get that beautiful bokeh in the background, and it's just a great lens altogether. And also this camera has a great light meter, so during my whole time shooting this, it has never missed exposures. The exposure is absolutely beautiful. The camera doesn't try to make everything 18% gray. It takes in the whole scene, so your highlights look beautiful, your shadows have details, and it's never going to miss exposure. I mean, I've tried, and it nails it. The one thing I have noticed is it did miss focus, but I think that was completely user error. Now this camera tells you where it's focusing in the viewfinder. There's 4 symbols. There's a person, 2 people, 3 people, and then mountains. So it was probably my fault, where, for example, let's say I'm aiming this camera at someone and it should be on the one person because one person's filling up the whole frame, but instead the camera's focusing behind them, so the needle will actually point to the mountains, telling me it's focusing to infinity, while I'm thinking it's focusing on one person, and I take the shot and miss focus. Where in reality, if I was paying attention to the needle, I would see the mountains, I would take my finger off the shutter button, half press it again, and then most likely the needle will show one person, and then I know it's focusing on the right area. So that was most likely my error. Another great thing about this camera is it takes 2 AA batteries, which is super common, so you're never going to be in a pinch to find a power source for your camera. It's everywhere. It's probably in your home right now, so the power source is great. There's no manual controls on this camera. There's only a couple things you can manipulate. So you have the exposure compensation kind of dial, where if you press this while shooting, it's going to overexpose your picture by 2 stops. And you'll use this if you're taking a picture of a subject in front of like a bright window. You'll press this button, it'll increase 2 stops your exposure. That way the person, you'll get your details in, and then hopefully your highlights will be retained in the background. And with film, you usually have good dynamic range for that to do that. You also have a self-timer button, not really a button, to switch. So you'll switch it and then press the button and then the shutter button, and then it'll give you 10 seconds and then snap the picture. You can also change your ISO. Mine you could change from 25 all the way up to 400. In the newer models, you could change it to up to 1000. Another thing is it does have a flash, and the flash will come up when the camera thinks it needs the flash. You could trick the flash by covering up the lens, and the flash will pop up. And if the flash pops up and you do not want to use the flash, you just push the flash back down. The light meter is right under the lens, but within the filter thread. So you could attach filters onto this lens, and the meter will meter through the filter. So if you guys are worrying about that, it will meter through your filters that you put on this. There is one trick I just wanted to teach you guys, is when you take a photo and press the shutter button, you're going to hear the shutter, But if you leave your finger on the button and leave the scene and then lift your finger, it'll then advance the film, which is kind of a noisy operation. So if you want to be more stealthy and quiet, take the photo, leave the scene, and then take your finger off the button, and then it'll advance the film. So before we get into these example photos, I'm just going to show you how to load the camera, and then I'm going to show you how to unload the camera. So on the camera, if you just open the back door here, you'll place your roll of film inside the back door, bring it on over, and the end of the film will lie on this red line. You'll then close the camera, and it will automatically load the film and spool it. When you're done shooting, on the bottom it says 1, which would be the first step, and 2, which would be the second step. 1, you're going to take the switch and move it to the right, and then 2, you're going to press the switch, and that's going to rewind the film, and then once you stop hearing the sound, you can take the film out. We're going to start on color film, and these are pictures I took on Kodak Ultramax 400, shot at 400. As you can see from these photos, they have great exposure, they're sharp. I want to look at some specific photos that you just saw. So in this case, the autofocus was able to focus on what was behind the window. So in this photo, I got a really nice silhouette. And the way I did this is, in this photo, I was focusing to infinity anyway. So I took the camera and I aimed it up, and then I half pressed the shutter and brought the camera down. That way the camera properly exposed for the bright sky and not for the boats in the photo. And it's focused to infinity, so everything will be focused. And then I took the photo when it was at the horizon line, so straight ahead. And that got me the silhouettes of the boats. Now, if I was to have took the picture straight on, I probably would have got a different exposure than what I was looking for. Or I could have took that exposure compensation dial, pressed it down. It would have overexposed 2 stops, and I probably would have got the details in the boats. But that's not what I was looking for in these photos. In this photo, it captured a butterfly in the foreground as well as the bright sky behind it, so it was able to expose the bright sky and the fast moving butterfly, which I thought was great for the camera to do as a point and shoot. Also, note how sharp the words are on this photo of the boat, and the buildings behind in the background are also pretty sharp for point and shoot. So I thought these were great aspects to have in a point and shoot camera. Now let's dip our toes into black and white. So these photos I took on Ilford Hp5 Plus 400 film, and I took a lot of these photos in the Nassau County Museum of Art. So let's take a look at some of these photos. Once again, these photos are super sharp and the exposure is perfect. But I also want to take some specific photos out of here and just take a look at them and explain them. So this photo, since this photo was so sharp, I was able to crop it almost like, I feel like 50%, and I made a print of it. and the print came out pretty good. So this is the print. And I thought the print came out really well, especially for something that was cropped so heavily. So you could crop these photos pretty good with the sharpness of this lens, and that lens really helps you to do that. I also made a print of one of the other photos. I think these prints came out really well. So if you're looking to print your work from this point and shoot camera, it's a great camera. Also, let's look at this photo. This photo is one of my favorites. This was the first picture on the roll, so it had that first frame light exposure, and I thought it was pretty unique, and this was not caused by an error from the camera. So just to conclude, I feel like this camera is going to nail your focus, it's going to nail your exposure, it's super sharp, and the design is just absolutely beautiful. So I feel like this is if you're in the market for a point and shoot, I feel like this is going to be your camera to go to. And plus it looks absolutely beautiful, so when you're shooting with it, you're going to capture some eyes, and since you like looking at it, you're going to want to pick it up more often and take it with you on your travels, or just on every day and just have it in your book bag. So I hope this review hopefully you may consider getting this camera and putting it back out in the wild so more people see it. I've also done a review on a Nikon Light Touch Zoom 120 ED. If you want to check out that review, it's linked below, and that's if you're in the market for a point and shoot that has the ability to zoom. So it also has a super sharp lens, but has the ability to zoom. So if that's something that's up your alley, you might want to consider that camera. So please check out that review. But I do highly recommend the Nikon L35AF.